Hello everyone, welcome you all. So in this video, we will continue about classes and object, and also we are going to discuss about constructor. In the part 1 video, I have shown you few examples regarding classes and objects. Now in this video, we are also going to see few more examples. Now let us get started. So let's see how to use constructor in Python, and we'll see how to convert the local variables into class variables, and how to call current class method in another method, and constructor with arguments. So let us see one by one practically. Let's open my PyCharm. So how to use a constructor in Python, how to create a constructor. Now I'll create a new Python file. Let's go to new Python file. So here I will just create a classes demo, some file. Now in this file, I'm going to show you first a very basic constructor, how to create a constructor inside the class. Now how to create a class by using class keyword, class, my class, right? So this is how we need to create the class, right? And here the parentheses are optional. So without parentheses also we can create the class like this. Now here I will create a method def m1. So it doesn't take any parameter, so this method belongs to class, so self is a keyword, and then print, and here I will just print some message, let's say good morning. All right, so good morning. So I have just printed some message within this method, and self says this method is belongs to this particular class. Now along with this method I will also create one constructor. So constructor also should be created by using def keyword, but the constructor will always start from the underscore init. Init is a keyword we have to use to create a constructor, and it will also take self, means this constructor is belongs to the class, right? So this is a constructor, and this constructor will not take any parameters here. This is empty constructor. Now inside this constructor, normally constructor will be used to initialize the values, okay, but here I will just print some value. So print, I will just say this is a constructor. This is your constructor. Okay, so we have just created one constructor within the class, but how we can invoke this constructor? So what is the difference between method and constructor here? So methods normally contains the logic, right? So constructor will contain the initializations. So method we have to call explicitly by using an object variable object, and constructor will automatically invokes at the time of object creation. Okay, we don't need to call the constructor explicitly. Now I have just created one method called m1 along with this one constructor. Now here I will just create the object for this particular class. Let us say c is equal to my class. My class is my class name. So this is an object. So as soon as I created an object, immediately the constructor will be invoked. Okay, so after that I will just call method name. So by using c.m1 I'll call method. Okay, so now let's execute this code. Okay, now we can see the first time the constructor is invoked. At the time of object creation, the constructor is invoked, so init constructor is executed. So this is constructor, so the message has been printed here, and then it is called the actual method which we have created in the class, right? So this is how we need to just create a simple constructor within the class. Now we'll see a few more examples regarding constructors and everything. So let's go on to the next one. So converting local variables into class variables. Converting local variables into class variables. So let us see for one example with this. Let's go to PyCharm once again. So here, observe this carefully. So here I will just create one class. Okay, my class name is my class. So inside this, I will just create a function called as a values. This is a function. Okay, this is a function, and here I will just this function is belongs to, this method is belongs to my class. So self comma, and I will pass two values here. Let's say val1 comma val2. So two values I'm getting into this method, and now here I will just print those values. Let's say print val1 and then print val2. All right, now I just printed those values. Now let me just create one more method. Okay, so let's say create a def I'll just create one more method called as add. So this is not taking any parameter. Here what I can do is I will just print val1 plus val2. Observe this carefully. So I have just created a class, and with this class contains a method def values, right? And this function, this method will take two parameters, and I've just printed those two parameters, and then again I'm adding those two values in the add method. So if you observe this, is this the correct syntax or not, or correct valid scenario or not? So one thing we need to observe here is, as soon as we provided the variables for the class, these variables are treated as a local variables, right? So these are the local variables. Here val1 and val2 are local variables. Local variables. So what does it mean? Local variables means we can access only within the methods. So local variables are local to this particular method, values method. So these are the local variables. But what I'm doing here is I am trying to use the same variables again in another method. So this is not at all possible, right? So the same variables I cannot use in another method because the scope of local variable is limited to this particular method. So when I do this, this will throw an error. So this is not valid criteria first of all. Okay, so let me just create an object for this. Let's see. So let me just create an MC is equal to, right? So my class, and my class I have just created, right? So now MC dot I will pass parameters to the values function, values method. I'll just say 10 comma 20 I have passed. Now observe this carefully. So here I have just passed MC dot values, right? Here the 10 will be assigned to the val1, 20 will be assigned to the val2. It repeats the value perfectly right. And then I will also call add method MC dot add. Okay, now let's run this code. So now you can see here what is an error it is giving is name val1 is not defined. Val1 is not defined, name error. So actually this is an actual error it is giving. So val1 dot val2 we are not able to add this. So why? Because these val1 and val2, as soon as we specified here, these two variables are treated as a local variables. So local variables means within the method only we can access, outside of the method we cannot access. So but still we are trying to access here, we are adding those two values, right? So this is the reason it is getting an error. So how we can solve this problem now? So there is a method, there is a process. We can convert these local variables into global variables. We can convert this into local variables into class variables. Okay, class variables are different. Global is different, class variables are different, local variables are different, right? So in the previous video I have talked about this in detail. So class variables means within the class we have to define. Global variables means outside of the class we have to define. Local variables means within the method we have to define, right? So these are the local variables. Now if I make these variables are class level or class variables, then I can access in the add method, right? Then I can access. But how we can make these local variables into class variables? So we can simply say here self dot val1 is equal to val1. So now what I'm doing is this val1, I'm storing this val1 into val1 again. So this val1 is belongs to class variable. Whenever I say self dot val1, this val1 is different and this val1 is different. This val1 is still local variable, but this val1 is belongs to self, means class. So this val1 is a class variable. Similarly, I will also convert this val2 into another variable, class variable. Self dot val2 equal to val2. Now in even value 2 also I have stored into val2, which is belongs to class. Now here self dot val1 is belongs to class. Here self dot val2 also belongs to class, but still val1 and val2 are belongs to local variables. Now as soon as I make them as a class variables, self dot val1, self dot val2, I can just use these two variables in another method. So here also we can just say, specify self dot val1 and self dot val2. So because here we are accessing, so here we are accessing local variables. Here there are local variables, and here, right? So but here I'm using class variables. before using these class variables in the values method itself, I have stored these local variable values into class variable val1 and val2. So once they become a class level, they can access them in any one of these methods within the class. All right. Now let's run this code now. It will get perfect output. So 10 and 20 we have just passed, and here we printed 10 here because this is a local variable. This is 20. Okay, this is again local variable. Now these variable values are still assigned to val1 and val2. Now here we have added val1 and val2. It is added and returned 30 as an output. So here it is returned 30 as an output. All right. So this is a how we need to convert these local variables into class level class variables. Okay, this is one example. Now here again, instead of this method, we can also make this as a constructor. Okay, so here we just created the values, right? So instead of this, I can also do the constructor. Okay, how it is possible? Let me just show you now. So the same thing, instead of values, I will just create a constructor. How to create a constructor? Hyphen hyphen init hyphen hyphen. So in constructor also, whatever variables we are passing, they are considered as a local variables. Even though it is a constructor, the variables or arguments will be considered as a local variables. So again the same problem. So we cannot add these two values directly in the another method. We must convert them into class level variables, and then we can add those variables. And the another difference is here we no need to call this values method, not at all required, because we make that as an constructor, right? So constructor will automatically invoke at the time of object creation, and then we called add method. But here one more change is this constructor is expecting two parameters, two arguments. So we must pass those arguments. I'll say 100 comma 200. So whenever I create an object, so immediately the constructor will be invoked. So 100 and 200 will be local variables here. Val1, val2 again still local variables, and I will make them as a class variables now. Val1 and val2, and then I can use these two variables, class variables, in the another method. So this will also give you exact output. Perfectly right. Okay. So this is how we need to convert local variables into class variables by using self keyword. All right. Now let's move on to the next one. So how to call current class method? This is the first two scenarios we already seen. Okay, constructor, how to create a basic constructor we have seen, and also how to convert local variables to class variable also we have seen. And the next thing is how to call current class method in another method. So let me just show you one example here. So here I will just create one class. Let's say my class again. In this class, I will just create one method called m1. So this is self; it is not taking any parameters. And here just print a method. So print this is. I'll just print some message here. This is m1 method. This is m1 method. All right. So now I will also create one more method in the same class. Let's say def m2, right? So def m2. And this method will take let's say one parameter. I'll just put something called a. Okay, and now here I will just print, I'll just print some message. Okay, this is m2 method, and along with this I will also print the value of a here. Okay, this is a method. Now in this class I have just created two methods. One is m1, the other one is m2. So m1 method not taking any parameters, and self means this method is belongs to my class, and here also self means this method is belongs to class. But first method is not taking any parameters, but the second method is taking some parameter or argument, and I'm printing that argument value here. Now can we call this m2 method from m1? So I want to call a method from another method from the same class. So I'm just usually how to call these methods. First we will create an object, right, for this class, and through this object we can call. Okay, so how to call these methods? Normally we create an object for this class, and through object we can invoke these methods, right? So here what I want to do is whenever I call m1 method, internally this method again should call m2 method. Okay, that's my requirement. So how we can do that is, let us say here I will just call So M2 is M1 belongs to same class. M1 and M2 are belongs to same class, right? So here I will just call self.m2, self.m2, and this method will accept a parameter. Let's say 100 I'm passing as a argument or parameter. So now what happens is whenever I call M1 method, it will print this message and then it will also call this method. And M2 method is where it is present in the same class, self.m2. So all the variables or methods we need to represent with the self keyword, representing the class variable or class method, right? So M2 is the class method. So we can just say self.m2. I'm passing the 100 here. Now what happens? This M1 internally calls this M2 and it will print this value. So in this case, I no need to call M2 method explicitly, right? So now I will create an object for my class. Let me just create an object for my class, right? Here I will just store C1. Fine. So C1 dot I will just call M1 method. That's it. So when I call M1 method, what happens? It will go here. Now it will print this message and immediately it will call M2 method, which is also available in the same class. Now M2 method will be called and M2 method is also belongs to same class. So it will accept one argument. So we are already passing one argument here. A will receive this value and here it will print. Okay, so this is how we need to call a method from another method from the same class. Now run this code. Now we can see the first one c1.m1 I have called. So first time it is called m1 and this message is printed. This is m1 method and immediately I called m2 method. So again it called m2 method here. If 100 will be assigned to the a. Now the print message will be printed here. Okay, so alright. So this is how we need to call a method from another method within the same class. This is an example for that. Alright, so now let's move on to the next example. So constructor with arguments. So we already seen one example how we can pass arguments to the constructor, but I'll show you one more example here how we can pass arguments to the constructor. Now let's go to the PyCharm. So here I will just create one more example how to pass arguments to the constructor. So here I will create a class. My class name is, let's say, my class, right? So in this class I will just create a constructor. So how to create a constructor? Def okay underscore init underscore and this constructor again belongs to the same class. So self represent this constructors belongs to the class and this constructor, let us say, take a variable called as a name. Okay, and now inside this constructor I will just print a name. Okay, I'll just print the name. So now this constructor is accepting an argument or parameter and internally it is printing it, right? So now I will create an object for this class. Let us say my class, right? So C is equal to my class. As soon as I created an object here, immediately the constructor will be invoked. We no need to call the constructor explicitly, right? Now when I run this code, so here it is giving an error. So why it is giving an error here? Because here this constructor is expecting one argument, but here we are not passing any argument. Okay, we are not passing any argument here. So that's the reason it is giving an error. So here let me pass my name. Okay, then run the code. So now it is exactly invoked this constructor and printed my output. So within the constructor, this variable considered as a local variable, right? Already we discussed earlier. So within the method, this variable will be treated as a local variable. So values printed. Suppose in the same class, I will create one more variable, name is equal to, here I'll just say Kumar. See the difference, okay? In the class itself, I will create one more variable. So what is this variable? This is a class variable. So this is a class variable. Remember this is a class variable, because we have created this outside of the method. So this is a class variable. Now, can we access this class variable within the method? Yes, we can still access, but how to access? If I write like this, print again name, there will be conflict, right? So this name is a one parameter, that is a considered as a local parameter, local argument, local variable. But what is this name? This is also local variable. It will be treated as a local variable. But how we can differentiate this class variable and local variable? How this constructor will know which one is a local variable, which one is a class variable? It doesn't know. So we have to specify self keyword again. Self is always representing the class. Remember this. Self means whenever you self in front of method or variable, that representing that particular method or variable is belongs to the class. So here this is the constructor which will accept one argument, and when I print that argument variable directly, this is a local. So here constructor argument by default this is a local. Okay, no question on this. By default is a local, even though it is a method. When I say parameter, that is a local to this method. But how we can access this class variable? By using self keyword. Right? So here this is the one. I think let me write self is a small case letter here. So self dot name. So S is a lowercase letter, self dot name. So this will representing the class variable. So represents class variable. Represents a class variable. Now within the constructor we are able to access local variable and also class variables by specifying the self keyword. Now when I create this constructor, when I create an object, as usual this parameter will be sent to constructor and it will print the name here. So here what is the value we will get? Power. So this is an output we will get. So when I print the class variable, so here we will get Kumar as an output. Now run this code, we'll get exact output. Right, so this is one of the example of constructor arguments or constructor parameter. Remember one thing, whenever we pass some arguments to the constructor, those variables are considered as a local variables. This same thing will applicable for method also. Even method also, when I pass some parameters here, they are comes under the local variables. But if you want to still access class level variables, we have to use self keyword. All right, now this is a constructor with arguments. Right, so now let us say one requirement I have here. So I will create one class called EMP class. So in that class I will just create a few variables, class variables, employee ID, employee name and the salary, and then I will create one more method called display method, which will that particular method will print the values of employee ID, employee name and the salary. Now let us implement this particular scenario. Now let's go to PyCharm once again. So this is my requirement, right? First I need to create an employee class. Let me create employee class. Let's say class EMP. This is my employee class. And within this employee class, I will define a few variables I need. What are those variables? EID, ename and salary. EID, ename and salary, right? So those variables I can define. So here I can just define, but the values of those variables should come from the actual object, right? So directly I will write one constructor, because constructor basically used to initializing the values, right? So I will write a constructor here, def hyphen init, and here this constructor will take three parameter or three arguments. What is that? EID is one argument, employee ID, ename is another argument, and salary is one more argument. So three arguments it will take. And now these three are local variables, right? EID, name and salary are local variables. Now I need to assign these two local variable values to the class variables. So how we can assign that? We have to refer self dot EID. Self dot EID means is equal to EID. So what does that mean is we are assigning the value of the local variable to class variables. As soon as I say self, that variable becomes a class variable. Okay. So here in this representation, EID is nothing but only the local variable. Okay, and self.eid means this is a class level variable. Both are different. Okay, but just we are assigning this EID value to the EID self.eid. But here whenever I say self.eid belongs to the class, EID belongs to the local variable. Okay, this is a class variable. Now similarly I will also assign ename and sal to the class variables. So self.ename equal to ename, and these values we will pass later from the object. And self dot sal equal to sal. So now I have reassigned these local variable values to the class level, class variables. And then I will create another method called def display method. And this display method not taking any parameters. Again, this display method is belongs to the same class. Now in the display method, I will print the values of EID, ename and salary. So if you want to print those values in the same line, we have a notation, right? What is the notation we can follow? So we have a notation. So what is that notation we can follow? So we can just print like this, right? The first notation is the curly braces. So I will print emp id, first emp id colon, put empty braces, give some space. Then I want to print emp name and give some spaces, and after spacing, after giving some space, write emp salary colon, give two spaces again. So keep everything in the double quotes here. So till here, put everything in the double quotes. So emp id, emp name, emp sal, and here I will just use a format function. Okay, format of. So we have to exactly put the same order. Okay, so here order is important. So these function I have already covered in the previous video, so please check it. So self dot eid. So this is exact order. Whichever order we are passing, the same value will go and substitute here. Okay, eid and comma from self dot eid. We need to separate with the comma. Again, self dot ename, comma self dot sal. So what does it mean is I am just printing the employee ID, employee name and employee salaries from the class variables. So as I said already, self.eid, self.ename and self.sal are the class variables, right? I'm just putting here. And whichever order we have put the brackets here, the same order we have to pass. Okay, sorry. We can pass any order, but what is the problem here is if I say ename, so in employee ID place, it will print ename here. So that is the problem here. So make sure you are processing in the same order. We can also write one more statement like this is also we can use, both are same, print. So we can use the percentage symbols. So let's say here I will say emp id colon. So id is a number format. Let's say percentage d and give some space. Again emp name. This is a string format. I'll just say percentage s. And after that I will print emp salary. And this is a number format. emp salary, don't put double quotes here, and emp salary, and this is again double or decimal number. I can put a percentage d, percentage g, and then close these quotations. And here we need to pass the exact same order, percentage, and in the open brackets we have to pass these values, self dot eid comma self dot ename, comma self dot sal. So these both statements are exactly correct, all exactly the same. Okay, both will produce the same output. Now I have just created an employee class which contains one constructor. This constructor will take three arguments, eid, ename and salary, but the constructor will take these three arguments as a local arguments. Then we cannot directly print them into another method because these are completely local to this constructor. So we have to store these values into class level variables. So I have self.eid, self.ename, self.sal. So these referring to the class variables. Whenever I say self, those variables are referring to the class variables, and the local values will be stored into the class level variables. Now I have just printed them. This is a class which contains a constructor and display method. Now how to access this? Now I should create an object. Let me create e1 is equal to emp. So this is the first object I created, but here we have constructor, right? So we must pass values here. So how many values we have to pass? Three values. Employee ID, let's say 101, and employee name, I'll just say Smith, and then I have to pass salary, let's say 10,000, something like that. Okay. Now as soon as I created an object for this class, immediately the constructor will be invoked, and these values will be assigned to the class variables. And then we need to call this display method. So e1 dot display, right? So then it will print those values. Now let us run this code. All right, so now we can see we are getting the same output for these two statements, right? Employee ID, employee name, employee salary, and so on. So here we have the small space, so the space is coming like that. So now if I see perfectly right. Okay, So we are getting the same output. So we can just go for this one or this format. Any one is fine. So this is a small example with a class, constructor, method, and also we created an object. All right. Now let's go for next topic. So far we discussed so many examples of classes, objects, constructors, and so on. Right. Now let us move on to the these are all again hyphen str underscore star underscore. These are all again predefined methods we have in the class. So let us see about this function. We have str and also we have a delete. So these are all predefined functions. Predefined functions. So just like a constructor. Suppose when the constructor method will execute, normally what is the constructor here? Constructor means hyphen init, right? So hyphen init is a constructor. Let me write here. Hyphen init is a constructor. So when this constructor will be invoked at the time of object creation, constructor will be invoked. And similarly, we have hyphen str. So when this will be executed, suppose if you want to print the reference variable, then str automatically will be invoked. And similarly, suppose if I want to, whenever I want to destroy an object, then hyphen delete method will be automatically executed. So these are the three methods we have: hyphen init, hyphen str, hyphen delete. So hyphen init is a constructor basically. So this will automatically invoked at the time of object creation. And str is a method which will invoke whenever you print the reference variable. And delete will be executed whenever you destroy the object. Okay, these are the three methods we have. Init is a constructor basically. Okay. Now let us see the delete and str with the example. First let us start with the str. How many ways we can use this str method? So as I said before, str automatically invoked when you create or when you print the reference variable of the object. Now I'll show you one example for this. Let's go here. So the first example, very simple example I show you. So here hyphen, I'm talking about hyphen str. Okay. Here I will just create one class. My class name is, let's say, my class. Inside I'm not writing anything. I'm just pass it. Okay. For now. So this is a class. Colon. Okay. Now, right. So how to call this class? Suppose we have to create an object. Right. Let me just create an object. C is equal to my class. C is equal to my class. Now I have just created an object. Now let us try to print this reference variable. Let us see what this will print. Okay. Print. I'll just say C. Now when I run this code, right? So this will give you, yeah, print is run. Print. Okay. Now let's run this code. This will give you this particular output. Let us understand this. Okay. So basically, this will return the memory location of this particular object. Okay, when I print the reference variable, it is returning the memory location of this particular object. But who is returning this one internally? Underscore str method is returning this one. So as I said before, whenever we are trying to print the reference variable, here C is a reference variable. Here C is the reference variable. C is the reference variable. So as soon as I'm trying to print this reference variable, immediately internally, by default underscore str function is executed. Str method is executed. So that str method will return this particular value. Okay, this is the memory location basically. So str is a method which will automatically invoked at the time of printing the reference variable. Printing the reference variable. Okay, so this is the one scenario. Now I'll show you one more case. As I said before, so whenever I print the reference variable value, internally hyphen underscore str method is invoked that will return this particular value. So what we understood based on this is str method will return some value. Str method, what kind of value it will return? String value it will return. String value it is written. So this is all our string format. Okay. So what I will do is, in the same class, instead of pass, I will just write the same method. Okay, this is an overriding. Okay, I will just create def underscore underscore str underscore underscore str, right? So I will just create this method again. So this is a kind of overriding process. So normally this function will return this one, right? The location of the object and the string format it will return. So I will just return, okay, return some string I will return. Okay, so normally if I don't put anything, this function by default return this particular string, means it will just return the memory location of this particular object. But suppose in the same class I overrided this method. Override means by default str method will be executed if I don't specify. If I specify here, that becomes overriding. So by default it will return something else here, but now it will return welcome because I have overridden the str function or method, right? Now again this method we no need to call explicitly. By default this method will be called whenever I print the reference variable. Now let's see this time what this will return. This returns welcome. This returns welcome now. Perfectly right? So what I have done is if I don't specify this str within the class, by default str will be invoked and it will return a string. It will return a string. What is that string? The location of the memory and object. But if intentionally if I put this method within the class and override this method, and whatever we put in the class, whatever value we are returning, that value will be returned here. Okay, so instead of this, it is printed whatever value we have written in this method. Okay, got it? This is a hyphen hyphen str hyphen hyphen. This is a one of the usage of this. Got it? So one more thing. So here as said before, this str function or method return only string. Only string. So for example, when I return 10 here, now what happens? Let's run this code. So it gives a error. What error it gives? Type error. Type error. So it's returning a non-string value. Means by default this method must return a string. That's how it is designed in the Python. And whenever we are overriding this method, we must also return the string here. So instead of this string, if I return something else, it will throw the error. Okay, what kind of error we get? Type error. Right, so this is a basic uses of str. So str function or method will be automatically invoked whenever we print the reference variable. Okay, so by using this, I will give you one more scenario. So we already done employee scenario, right? Employee class created, and within this we have created one constructor. Remember? So I'm going to use the same example again here. Now this time I will just introduce you STR function, how to use STR function for that example. Now let me just copy that again. So this is an example we have done earlier. So employee class I have created, and I have created one constructor which will take 3 parameters, and these 3 parameters will be considered as a local variables, and again I have stored them into class variables by specifying the self keyword, and self.eid, self.ename, self.sal is representing the class variables, and then I created the display method and it prints the values of those variables, right? Now if I want to call this method, right, first I need to invoke the constructor. Whenever an object is created, constructor will be invoked. But if I want to print those values, I need to call this display method explicitly. But this time I don't want to use this display method. Whenever I want to print this reference variable, immediately I want to get the values of these variables. I don't want to call this display method. Instead of this, I will just create underscore str function. So what str will do, whenever I print the reference variable, this method automatically invoked. So just a small change I will do here. So instead of display, I will just say underscore str. This is a function. And when this will be invoked, now instead of calling this display function, just try to print even itself. So we discussed this in previous example, right? Whenever we print the reference variable, okay, automatically str function will be executed, right? So here I'm just printing this reference variable, and then automatically this function will be executed and the values will be printed. So whenever I create an object, constructor is automatically invoked and values will be saved. and whenever I printing the reference variable, STR function is executed. So here there is no need of display function and other methods. It's very simple, right? So whenever I print this reference variable, immediately the STR method will be invoked and print those values. Now run this code. So it's giving small error here. What is that error? Print E1, right? E1 is an object, underscore type error it is. So one mistake we have done here. What is the mistake we have done? As I said before, STR function will return a string type of string returns, but we are not returning anything here. We have just printed, we haven't returning anything, right? We must return this value. We should not print. Instead of print, we have to return. Okay, I'll just keep, I'll remove another statement. So instead of printing this, I have to return it. Okay, because STR function is designed like that. But if I don't put anything, string function automatically invoked, it will return the object location, memory location. But we are overriding this method here. So instead of printing these values here, we are just returning those values, Got it? Now let's run this code. Now you can see exactly those values have been printed. So whenever I print a reference variable here, this will immediately invoke this STR. This STR function return the values of this one. Okay, finally we get the exact values. This is also one more way we can do that. So underscore STR function will automatically invoke whenever we print the reference variable. Okay, so remember this, very important. Now let us go for another example. Okay, let's go for discussing another one, underscore del. So similarly, underscore init we have discussed, str we discussed. So one more method we have called del we have. Now what is the use of del? So we'll see that. So one is underscore, this is not delete actually, del, only del. Underscore str is a one method. Underscore init is a one method. Underscore del is another method. So init is a constructor, will be invoked at the time of object creation. str is a method which will invoked whenever you print the reference variable. Now del will be automatically invoked whenever you destroy the object. Okay, remember this. Now I'll just use this del keyword now. Let's go to PyCharm one more time. Here I will just create a small class. Let's say my class. Okay, so in this class I will create this method. Observe this carefully. Def underscore del and again underscore self. So this del method belongs to this particular class. Now here by default okay, so if I don't print anything, by default it will destroy the object. We don't get any message. Okay, so for that I'll just print some confirmation message. So I will just say destroyed. Some message I'm printing. Okay, so destroyed. So destroyed. Okay, so this print message I have written in the del function. So now for this function, for this class, I will create an object. Observe this carefully. So first I will create one object. Let's say so C1, okay, equal to my class. This is the first object. And now C2 is equal to my class. This is also another object. Two objects I created. Now how to destroy these objects? Simply we use del command, del C1. So this will destroy the object. Now let us run this and now observe this. It is giving two times. Even though we destroyed one time, it is giving two times because internally some objects are destroyed which are already created previously, right? Those objects are destroyed. So that's the reason it is giving two times actually, but it should come only one time. So if I want to verify this clearly, we can just go to some online Python editor. We can verify clearly this. We can say Python compiler, Python 3.x compiler online. Okay, let's go to some Python compiler online. So RestAssured. So here I will execute the same commands. Now it is up. So this is a new completely stuff, right? We haven't created any objects here. Now let's go copy and the same code here, right? So now I'm just destroying only C1, right? Now run this code. Let me just run it. Now we can see it is again destroyed. 2 times it is coming, but normally it should come only 1 time. Okay, I put something wrong here, semicolon. No, we should not use any semicolons. Now run this. It's giving 2 times. Basically it should come only 1 time. It should not come 2 times, because somewhere these objects are already created somebody else. Okay, so because of that reason it is giving 2 times, but it should come only 1 time. So when I say second time, if I delete C2, okay, then it should come 2 times. Then it should come. So del C1, sorry, this is C1, right? C1. Now run it again. Yeah, now it comes to 2 times. So what we understood based on this is, whenever we are destroying the object, del function automatically executes. Del function automatically executes. Okay, so whenever we trying to destroy the object, the del function automatically executes. So this is the functionality of del function. So 3 functions we discussed. One is constructor and str and del. Okay, so these are all few examples so far we discussed. Okay, so that's all for this video. So thank you all for watching. So please subscribe my channel to get more updates on this. Thank you all.